Welcome to Greenville County Library System and our virtual event series. My name is Rachel and I'm the Adult Outreach and Event Coordinator for the Greenville County Library. I'm so pleased you could join us for this event, Cooking Matters at the Store, presented by Clemson SNAP-Ed. If you're interested in our other live virtual events, please check out our website, greenvillelibrary.org, and select Adult Virtual Events under the Classes and Events button to see our full calendar of events. It's got all ages listed, but check out the adult ones. And to check on-demand videos, classes, and activities, select the Adults category under Virtual Classes and Activities. Again, all found on greenvillelibrary.org. You can also learn more about this particular topic that we're discussing tonight by clicking on Health and Wellness under our Learning and Research heading. And of course, if you're interested in checking out cooking and wellness materials, make sure that your library card is up to date and come visit us at any of our locations. You can also check out any of our ebooks by never leaving your house. You can do it from your couch. We look forward to serving you soon. Please join me in welcoming our presenters for today, Myra and Diana with Clemson SNAP-Ed.
Hi.
Hello all, thank you so much for joining us. We're excited that you guys are here. I'm gonna share my screen really quick and I realize now that having the PowerPoints and having our videos up, sometimes our videos are in the way. So if you click the black bar at the top, you can kind of drag that around to be able to see the full screen. I don't know if that is a problem for you guys. Maybe it's just from me since I'm sharing it. But today we're going to be talking about cooking matters at the store. If we were in non-quarantine and non-COVID times, we would love to take you on a tour of a grocery store. Although we've all been to the grocery store a million times, what we're going to be looking at is, I suppose, better ways to shop, more efficient and more cost-effective ways to shop, and hopefully healthier ways to shop too. So, but we're going to point out some things that we would point out to you guys in a grocery store on this lesson today. So we're going to be talking about reading food labels. We're going to be talking about buying fruits and vegetables, comparing prices. And I know we've talked about this before, but Day, do you want to?
Yeah, so of course, this is my plate. If you weren't here in the previous classes, my plate is essentially the super updated version of the old food pyramid that we used to have, but it lays out the 4 different categories we want to see on our plate. And then of course there's dairy. Some people eat their dairy, some people drink their dairy. It's completely up to you, but we want to have fruits, grains, proteins, and vegetables. And we want to make sure that the fruits and vegetables are going to be at least half of our plate. And it doesn't say that on here, but we want to make sure that our grains are going to be whole grains. Whole grains are going to just be the most nutritious, but that they're more nutritionally dense, but they're also better for your body. And so we want to make sure that the grains that we're getting are going to be whole grains.
And kind of just to start our conversation about the grocery store, if you'll look at this plate, you'll see that there are a lot of different colors. They make it colorful to kind of represents the foods that you're eating. We want to be, when we're shopping, we talk about a rainbow cart so that we can have a rainbow plate. So when you're going through the grocery store, we want to see vibrant colors in there. And I do not mean the red from the Cheez-It box. I mean some red apples. I mean bell peppers, different types of leafy greens, trying to take away some of the colorful packaging and replace that with some colorful fruits and vegetables, and having, varied proteins, varied dairies in there. So I love this representation of the plate, because we not only want your plates to be colorful, you can think about that when you're shopping as well, having a colorful basket. So
Oh, go ahead, Maya.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I was gonna say, so if you guys don't mind sharing with us, you can come off of mute or you can put it in the chat box, whichever tickles your fancy. But what kinds of fruits and vegetables do you guys usually buy?
I buy a lot of spinach and apples and oranges.
Okay. Amy said cantaloupe, strawberries, peppers, and onions. Danielle said bell peppers, bananas, and grapes. I actually just got finished eating a ton of grapes. So I love that. Cool. Myra, do you want to tell us what kind of vegetables and fruits that you buy?
I feel bad because I share like the same things in every class, but I know we just talked about this day in our last class, but we buy cilantro, jalapenos, mushrooms, and onions are our like for like big staples. If we don't have those, something's crazy is happening. We also keep a lot of bell peppers on hand and carrots. And then kale as well. We use that in a lot of different things.
I buy a ton of grapes. I buy lots of salad mix because I have like a bunch of random things in my fridge that could be on a salad. And so it's just easier for me to like make salad for lunch and just throw on a bunch of stuff out of my fridge. So yes, salad mix and grapes. And I buy a lot of onions and mushrooms. I think those are the other two things I buy a lot of.
That's awesome. When y'all go to the grocery store, kind of just like a point of this. So everybody sounds like they buy a good bit of fresh fruits and vegetables, which is awesome. When you go to the grocery store, do y'all, I'll say take the tour. So going right and go to the produce section first and then kind of let the grocery store guide you? Or do you have a list and you stick to it and you go straight to where you need to go? Neither of these are wrong answers. I'm just asking for conversation purposes.
Someone said they use a list but still go up and down each aisle, and then I start with a list to let myself be inspired, and yes, but with a list too. I love this. We always want to tell people to start with a list just because that list is honestly just helpful for the purpose of not buying something you already have, but also like if you're like me and you get hungry sometimes and you're like, let's go to the store, and then you end up buying like 30 things that you absolutely do not need, and most of them are not fresh, and they're just like maybe a box of Cheez-Its and a ton of Oreos. So definitely we're so proud of you guys that you use a list. But also just like being inspired by the store is also nice too, because we tell people a lot of times we don't want you to feel like you're being boxed in by a recipe. So like if you know like a rough idea of what you want, but you still let yourself be inspired by the different aisles in the store and make up something on the fly, that's always okay too. But from a financial standpoint and also like a standpoint of not buying a bunch of stuff that never goes bad on the shelf, we like to have a list and try not to go when you're super hungry.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that y'all said that. And I always just encourage people to get your fruits and veggies. I kind of like let the grocery store guide you that way first, because sometimes when I have made some of those good choices of fruits and vegetables, I'm less likely to go down the snack aisle and then fill my buggy up that way. However, if I go to that snack aisle first, I may be inspired in a different way. So I do try to, let the grocery store guide me along the edges first. We always say shop outside in, so that you can get your, fruits and vegetables and your protein and your dairy. And then you can go visit and see what snacks if you really need to at the end, And of course, some good stuff is in those middle aisles too, like the grains and then some canned and frozen vegetables as well. So very good.
Oh, someone said their Ingles has bakery items first. My Ingles also has bakery items first, and that makes me so mad. But I'm like, this is a chance for me to practice some self-control. So I definitely feel that vibe.
Yeah, most of the groceries, yeah, absolutely. There's like the fruits and vegetables and or the bakery. You have to go through it to get to the next thing.
Yep.
the temptation is real. They want you to smell it. It's a very good marketing strategy. Ours, the bakery's right after it, but I go by it anyway because the nice cheeses are like right past it. So I'm like, I gotta go this way. Not everything is bad in that area either, because they have some pre-done rotisserie chickens, and those things are phenomenal for sometimes saving time and sometimes saving money, depending on, you know, if you use all of it or not. Okay. I'll do this one. So talking about comparing and finding the best deal, that's something that's super important to us, is to be able to shop on a budget and to be able to make our dollar stretch as far as it can. And we can do that by looking at the unit versus the retail price of different things. So this can be relevant for fresh produce, or it can be relevant to things that are bagged or canned or whatever. But what this is telling you, the retail price is what you are actually paying. So when you go to the counter, that is how much you will owe. You'll owe $3.49 for this particular, it is whole carrots, 5 pounds of carrots. You're going to owe $3.59 or $3.49. But if you break it down into units, there's 5 pounds and it's 70 cents per pound. So if you were to compare this to other carrots, so baby carrots or even canned carrots, frozen carrots, all of those things, the unit prices are going to be quite different. Generally, if you buy a 5 pound bag of carrots, that's going to be cheaper unit pricing than if you buy a 1 pound bag of baby carrots. So I'm hoping that this has did I put, yay, okay, just making sure I did. So as an example here, the whole carrots that we were just looking at, 5 pounds, it's 70 cents per pound. If we look at the baby carrots, they are $1.99 for the retail, and they're only 1 pound, so they're $1.99 per pound. The whole carrots that are 1 pound are $1.49. and $1.49 per pound as well. They're only giving you 1 pound. What I hope for you guys to be able to realize for this, and again, it's not just produce, this is for most anything that you see in a grocery store that have come in different sizes, there's gonna be a unit price. If you can use the 5 pound bag of carrots, although you're paying more at checkout, you are getting a better deal and you are using your money more effectively, because for each of these things, it is 2 times or more as much per pound. So to get a baby carrots, it's more than 2 times. To get a whole carrots that are only 1 pound full, it's 2 times as much per pound. I'm hoping I make sense with this, but we just encourage you guys to look at the unit pricing and compare it to other similar items. So if I knew that I was roasting carrots, I could look at my whole carrots and see, okay, that's 70 cents per pound. I'm going to go to the frozen section and see if how much they are per pound for the frozen carrots and see if I'm saving any money there. So that's one big benefit.
So what are some of the pros and cons of different forms of fruits and vegetables? And then we have the 3 that we most commonly see. So fresh, canned, and then frozen. So what are some pros and cons of the different ones that you guys can think of? We got longevity for the canned and frozen. That's definitely one. Canned and frozen last longer. Fresh tastes better. Frozen works well in a smoothie. We've never gotten that one as a pro, but it's definitely a pro.
It is.
Anybody else got anything?
I'm more likely, oh yeah, canned has a different texture. Con. Mm-hmm.
And cost.
Yeah.
And that can be a pro and a con.
Mm-hmm.
Any
I
wrap
guess
up or anything? Go ahead, Maya.
I was going to say one of the cons, which may be on one of our other slides, so I don't know if I'm supposed to say it, but is that they will oftentimes add ingredients to canned and frozen that I am not interested in having. So, for example, the peaches, if they had it in syrup, if they're canned in like 100% syrup, I wanted my peaches, but I didn't want them in syrup. So having to look for the ones that are don't have any sugar or salt added to them.
Cool. So those are actually all really good pros and cons. And there's like, because there are pros and cons for each different form of fruit and veggie, there's like some benefit in all of them. So sometimes, like, for instance, like, yeah, fresh fruit is great, but if you know you're not going to be able to get to use all that fresh fruit in a certain time frame and you know it's going to go bad before you can use it, it's usually best to get frozen or canned. And if you know you're going to specifically need that fruit for a smoothie, definitely get frozen as opposed to getting the canned, because then you don't have to add ice to your smoothie, which is like very helpful.
So the only other points that we want to make is that all of these have their uses and none of them are bad. And canned, fresh, or frozen, we're excited and happy that you're eating fruits and vegetables. They are going to, like you said, change the texture. They're going to change the longevity of how long they last. So being able to get canned or frozen is going to make them last longer. It's going to give them a different texture though. Sometimes the canned or frozen may be a little bit cheaper. Fresh usually tastes better. They are going to go bad quicker. Sometimes you can use them in more versatile of a way because they are fresh. You can cook them in different ways, or you can eat them raw, which sometimes you can't do for the canned or the frozen. But all that to say, they're all still fruits and vegetables as long as you're finding ones that don't have sugar and salt or, added to them. And none of them are necessarily good or bad. We just want you to realize that there are pros and cons of each, but that they're all good options. So shop for fruits and vegetables, fresh, frozen, and canned. And shopping in season for things too. So if you're shopping, so like peaches right now are not in season anymore. So they're going to be more expensive if they even have them at the grocery store. If they're fresh, they're going to be more expensive. So you could find them cheaper in a can or when they're frozen. However, in September, whenever peaches were in season, they were actually cheaper to buy fresh than they were to buy frozen or canned. So knowing what's in season is important too.
So this is the slide we like to talk about when it comes to using food labels to compare products, which is super helpful, especially if you're you have like dietary restrictions, or even just like to know what's in your food, to know like the nutritional value of your food. And so, of course, like at the top, we have the serving size. Serving size is very tricky, especially for me, because I just won't look at it sometimes. And I think I can eat this whole box. Like if I can eat it, it's for me. So that's going to be the amount of food the nutrition facts are based on. So it's very easy to look at a bottle and it says 500 calories and you're thinking, well, it says like maybe 230 calories, but of course that's only for like 2/3 of that, 2/3 cup, and that might have like 4 or 5 servings in the entire product, and we don't want to drink 4 or 5 servings of something that has 230 calories per serving. And then we have the daily value of the nutrients, which is super helpful, especially if you are trying to hit certain values. It's not super important to hit those values for everybody. Some people it is, but we don't want to make anybody feel like it's a necessary thing for everyone. But this will tell you the total fat. It'll tell you cholesterol, sodium. And then it also, for the total fat, it gives you the breakdown in what's saturated and what's trans fat. You don't see a ton of it in most products nowadays, but it's still important to know, especially if it's on there. And then we'll have the nutrients that are fat, sodium, and sugars, which are super helpful if you're someone who has maybe restrictions on how much sodium they're supposed to be intaking just because of some health concerns. It's important to know where that is on the label to be able to look for that and find it fairly easily. And then we also have total sugars, which total sugars is like my train that I get on and rant about, because there's a difference in the total sugars and then the included sugar. So say your product has 52 grams of total sugars. If 50 of those grams are added sugars, it's probably not the best product for you, because essentially what the producer of that product has said was, this doesn't taste sweet enough. Let me just throw a bunch more sugar in here. And it was probably fine when it only had 2 grams of sugar, but you know, who's to say? But so total sugars, make sure you look and see how much of that is actually included. How much of that is added versus how much is naturally occurring in that product. And then we have some more nutrients, which is going to be our fiber, protein, vitamins, calcium, and iron. Fiber is a great one to look at, especially for if you're looking for products that are like, when we talk about whole grains, when you're looking at whole grain products, the fiber count is going to be a little bit higher on whole grain products as opposed to enriched products. And we always want fiber for our diets. It's super healthy for us. It's great for cleaning out our digestive system, but also just making sure everything's working properly. So always get your fiber. Protein is also important too, and that'll tell you how much protein that you're ingesting. And then it talks about calories, which is like how much energy you're going to get from that food. And so if you see something that's going to be like a candy bar, for instance, it has like 700 calories, which is like insane. I don't think I've ever seen a candy with 700 calories. But if you see a candy bar that has about 700 calories and you know most of that's going to be sugar, it's going to give you 700 calories, but it's not going to keep you full as though it had 700 calories. And so pretty soon you're going to be looking for something else to give you some energy, something else to fill you up. And so we want to look for those things that are a little bit more nutritionally dense than a candy bar at 700 calories. But this is just a really good way for you guys to see exactly what your food label is talking about, and just to be aware of where everything is. And then the percent daily value on here too is really important to know, because if you're eating a product that it has about 98% of your percent daily value for total fat, probably not the best product to eat right now, unless you are going to go run a marathon and you're going to run it all off or something. But I can tell you, I'm not running any marathons anytime soon, so I keep my percent daily value pretty low.
For sure. This slide has a lot going on, so I hope it's not too confusing. Day, you did a wonderful job explaining it, but the ones to highlight, even the fat, sugar, and the sodium, just make sure those are low. We don't want to have a high daily percentage of those. We want those to be low numbers. And then the vitamins that are listed, the proteins and the fiber, we want those to be high. So if anything sticks, those things. And I love what you said about the serving size too, because that gets me. If I sometimes, like, especially for like cereals and snack foods, more so for those types of things, I'm not usually looking at that. But then if I look I like different crackers or something like that, I'll grab like a handful of them, and a handful is not the appropriate serving. So those are really important to look at to know how much what nutrition you're getting from those foods. Any of y'all eat whole grains or know kind of the difference between them?
And if you don't know the difference, that's completely fine, because a lot of people don't know the difference, and a lot of these companies trick you into thinking one way as opposed to the other way.
And I said, does anybody know about whole grains or the other one or something like that? The other is refined grains. I don't know. I didn't say that. So yeah, whole grains or refined grains.
Or if it doesn't say refined, it'll say enriched. That's another word. Yeah.
So if it's not something, yeah, go ahead, Day.
Oh no, you're fine. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so if it's not something that you're familiar with, the first place to check is the nutrition or ingredients list on the back. So the ingredients list is going to be right near the nutrition fact, or right at the bottom or near the nutrition facts that we just talked about. So And somebody said they try to choose whole grains, but it can be confusing. That is so true. And I don't know the marketing that some of these companies do just to make you believe that it's whole grain when all they actually have to do is use whole grain flour. Like, it just doesn't make much sense to me. But yeah, they do. So the first ingredient on something that is whole grain will be whole wheat or whole something. And that's one way that you'll know. Usually on the ones that say that are whole grain will actually have that whole word on the front of their package, not just multi-grain or wheat bread. It'll actually have the word whole on it, but the ingredient list is the first place to check.
And also, just while we're talking about the ingredient list, anytime you're looking at the ingredient list, the ingredients are listed as the most abundant in the product to the least abundant. So if the first product is sugar, that product is mostly comprised of sugar. So when we're looking for things that say whole wheat flour or whole wheat grain needs to be the first ingredient. So if there's something above that, we might want to question it a little bit, but also probably just choose a product that says whole wheat first. And also Myra just said like whole grain and multigrain and whole wheat or whole grain. Multigrain is not the same as whole wheat. They say that to confuse you sometimes. That's why it can be confusing. So unless it specifically says whole wheat, it is not whole wheat, and they are just trying to trick you. And they probably have put something in there like caramel color, or they put molasses in there to make the breads darker, to make you think that it's a whole grain when really it's just a sugary bread. And then also another thing that they will do is they'll I just lost my train of thought so fast. But yes, they'll put seeds and grains on the outside of bread to make you think it's whole wheat. It is not whole wheat all the time, so make sure you're just checking the ingredient list. Because they will try and trick you. For what reason, I don't know, when they could just use whole wheat, but that's neither here nor there.
And the reason that we're talking about this at all is because when you're eating whole grain foods, you are generally getting more fiber in. It's more nutrient dense than refined grains are. So what I mean by that are there are usually more vitamins in whole grain anything, pasta, bread, rice, all of those things. So whenever you're searching for that, that's the reason that we're harping on this just a little bit. And it's not to say that all of your grains need to be whole grains. We kind of practice the rule of half of your daily grains should be whole grains so that you're getting in those extra vitamins, those extra nutrients, and that extra fiber. And it's not to say that the multigrains and things like that are bad. We just don't want you to be thinking that they are whole wheat. And they're not. So because a lot of the things that they put on there are good, flax seeds and all of those types of things are definitely not bad, just not whole grain usually.
And we just want you to know.
Yeah, not saying here nor there. If I have been trying to, I think I use this example a lot. I've been trying to get my parents to eat more healthy. It's been a goal, kind of a longer goal, and we've made a lot of strides, but they will not give up their white bread. That is just, I don't know, that's their thing. They're like, we can not taste the difference in pasta, so we'll switch our pasta. We're good with that. Switching some of the types of crackers we eat, all that good stuff. They eat some brown rice now, but bread is like, no, won't do it. But anyway, I love whole wheat bread. I can't really tell the difference. I actually like it better, but this is a good example of what Dave was saying. The multi-grain bread has all these speckles on top that make me initially think that looks super healthy, but it is actually just refined grains.
Which, and one of the reasons that like agitates me so much about the fact that like they sell like enriched wheat flours, because they strip all the stuff on the outside of the actual grain and then they put it right back in the form of like all these other minerals and nutrients when they could have just left it as it was. And so I think like making sure, and really the reason that we harp on is we just want to make sure that you guys like know what your options are, and you can like decide what you want when you go to the store, as opposed to being made to think something is something that it isn't. And so like we're not gonna like yell at you if you don't decide that you want to get the whole wheat bread over the multigrain bread. We just want to make sure that you know the difference, and that like you get to make that choice for yourself, as opposed to being tricked by these advertising companies to get something that isn't really what you thought it was.
Mm-hmm. And I swear I'll move on after this. I don't know why we always get on a tangent on this, but the other last reason that I will say is that multigrain bread is generally more expensive if you're in the store than 100% whole wheat bread. So if you're actually looking, so people all the time tell us that it's too expensive to eat healthy, and there's just a million different foods that they'll list and things like that. And multigrain breads are sometimes $1 to $2 more a loaf than 100% whole wheat bread. And usually the 100% whole wheat bread is only a few cents more, if anything more, than the regular white bread. So just knowing what you're looking for.
So, does anybody currently drink a lower fat dairy food? And if you do, how have you how did you transition your family over to that lower fat dairy food? Or if you don't, and you need some tips and tricks, anybody that has some can offer them. So we drink skim milk and save the whole milk. And yes, we use low fat milk and sometimes skim. Cool. I use 2% for my cereal, but I can't stand milk, so I just use a little. Okay, got it. So those are all great. So did anybody have trouble with transitioning over to a lower fat milk? We got a good transition is to start diluting your whole milk bit by bit until you get down to where you want to be. I actually love that so much. I've never heard anybody say that they've tried doing that, but I actually love that because it's essentially what like a reduced fat milk is. So you're just kind of doing it on your own terms until you get comfortable enough to take the plunge. So I like that. Oh, and so someone said, no, my family will drink any of it. I love that.
Good.
We love flexibility.
And there's also, there's low fat options. I know a lot of the times they don't necessarily stand out, especially if we do have our list and we know what we're going for, but they make low fat options and cream cheese and sour cream. And even there are certain types of cheeses that are lower in fat that we can, make choices on, like eating Parmesan and mozzarella more. So
we gotta use low fat sour cream, but low fat cheese is harder to melt. I actually did not know that.
Yeah.
And then, I do get lower fat sour cream and cream cheese. Awesome. Yep. I love that. Very cool. I actually did not know that low fat cheese, because I don't eat cheese. And so I didn't know that like low fat cheese is harder to melt, but that like makes sense now. And now I have like a tidbit to tell people about why their low fat cheese is a little harder to melt.
Don't melt. Yeah. Those are awesome. So you guys already sound like y'all are making a lot of good choices. And sometimes it's not necessarily switching all of it. If you have a few things that are like your things and you're like, no, I'm going to drink whole milk, that's just going to be the way it is. Then try to look for other things in the cream cheeses and the sour creams and the yogurts and all of those things that you can have lower fat options in. So definitely not trying to rock your world and change everything all in a day, just trying to make healthier choices when we can. And especially ones where we can't tell the difference. Like there are so many things like cream cheese. I started because they have the 1/3 cream cheese and they have the non-fat and they have the full fat cream cheese. And I was like tasting all of them and I'm like, I have no idea. Like if I use it in a recipe, I couldn't tell you which is which. So to me, that's an easy option. Same for milk, 2% or skim. It's like, it's all the same to me. What type of proteins do y'all cook?
So I'll start. I don't eat like traditional protein, like I don't eat meat. But I do like tofu, and I don't eat as much tofu as like most people think that I do, but I eat a ton of mushrooms. So mushrooms are like my go-to protein, mushrooms and beans. Tofu is like my treat. We got a chicken many ways, but they love it grilled with Italian herb marinade. That sounds really yummy.
Yes, Amy. Same. Chicken.
Tofu, some pork, lots of beans, and we got chicken also.
Very cool.
Nice.
You guys are already doing amazing. So, what do we need to tell you? Essentially, there are many different ways to get proteins in. You guys already are doing, tofu and pork and chicken and beans. So we obviously know meat. Pork has a higher fat content, but it's not, everything in moderation, of course. And there's also, ground beef, and just choosing the highest % of lean meat possible is always a good option. And then ground turkey is another good option as well.
And I know Myra just said choosing the leanest meat possible is like best. And I know like a lot of people sometimes are like, well, it's a little bit more expensive. But if you think about it, you're getting your money's worth, because say if you buy meat with a little bit higher fat content, you don't actually get to eat that fat most of the times, depending on how like you're cooking it, because most of the time it cooks off, or you like pour it off if you're making burgers or something. So when you do get a higher lean meat percentage, it might be a little bit more expensive, but you actually get to like eat all of the money that you paid for in meat. So it might be a little bit more expensive, but sometimes it's worth it. So
absolutely. The last thing about meat and in general, things that are prepared, I guess I'll not just save this for proteins. I don't have a slide on it necessarily, but this is for anything at the grocery store that has been pre-prepared for you. So for example, you'll go in and you'll see in the meat section that there will be burgers that have already been pattied together for you. That is going to cost you more money than buying the ground beef or the ground turkey itself and pattying them yourself. If you go to, again, the meat section and you find that they have chopped up a piece of steak and they've chopped up a bell pepper and some onions, and then they have it listed as hibachi, and they have it, your hibachi ready to grill or something like that. That is going to cost you more money because they have put effort into it, and they're going to charge you for that. And they've already packaged it and things like that. So just being aware of those facts, of even though sometimes that may be worth it to us, hey, I don't have the time to do this. I want to pay for the convenience, but I always want people to be aware that is something that they're charging you for. So if you have the time to spend 5 extra minutes, putting an egg and, in the ground beef and mixing it up and pattying them yourself, then that will save you some money in the long run too. So just looking at those things that have been prepackaged for you, usually they're going to charge you for that. The same for if you go to the fruit and vegetable area. If they have cut up pieces of watermelon in a tub and it's ready to eat watermelon, they're going to charge you a larger unit price for that than they would if you just bought the watermelon. So paying for convenience is something that I usually point out at a grocery store when we're walking around, things that are convenience items. So just be aware of that. They do it a lot with protein. So ready to make meatballs and ready to make all types of things. So today we have a fall vegetable salad that we're preparing. I hope you guys enjoy it. It has some unique ingredients in it. I picked it because hopefully these are some things that maybe you don't get a lot of, that you don't use a lot, so you can see how they're prepared, and then you can kind of pick and choose what you might actually want to use in a recipe or not. So welcome, this is Myra Brookins from Clemson Snap Ed, and today we are going to be making a fall vegetable salad. with some unique ingredients, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So first thing that I want to do is just kind of tell you what we have here. Got a lot of stuff going on, and I'm just going to kind of introduce it, and then we'll get started on making some of those things. I have some barley, dry barley right here. Then I also have some ingredients for our dressing that we're going to be making. So Dijon mustard, we have black pepper, salt, we have apple cider vinegar, a lemon, we have garlic clove, and that's mostly going to be our dressing. Then we have some kale, we have an apple, we have a beet, and some fennel that we're going to have in our salad included as well. And then, not pictured, I guess the only thing are some different types of nuts. You can use almonds, walnuts, pecans, anything that you prefer. I have a little bit left of all three of those things, so I'm going to use a little bit of each in this recipe, and that's about it. So the first thing that we would do to get this recipe in particular started is start to cook our barley, because it does take about 40 to 50 minutes to cook barley. So we would boil our water, which I already have over here going. I had water boiled, and then I would wash my barley off. So I had just placed the amount that I needed to cook based off of the package instructions in here, whisked it around a few times, and just drained it. And I did that about 3 times just to rinse our barley off. So once we do that, after the water is boiling, add that in there, turn it down, let it simmer for about 40 to 50 minutes. And by the time you have that done, we will have everything else here done. So it should match up timing pretty well. So the next thing that I did was go ahead and wash all of my produce. So wash my fennel and my beet, apple, and my kale off. And then also before all of this, I washed my hands, of course. So now that we have that done, we're gonna go ahead and take our kale off of the stem. So you can also use any type of hearty green for this. You don't even have to. If you have a favorite type of salad that you really enjoy, you can use any of them. If you like spring mix or spinach or anything like that, you can use that absolutely. So the best of our ability, we're just going to kind of peel this off. We're always looking for jobs that maybe our family members can help with, whether that be kids or anyone else living in the home. This is something that's really easy to do. We're literally just picking the green off of the stem. We don't necessarily want to take the whole side of it off and leave it like that. We're going to kind of tear it apart. We're going to cut ours today for this particular recipe, but if you wanted to give somebody else in the household a job, they could very honestly just tear this. They could wash their hands and just tear this into smaller pieces by ripping it. So this would be a great job for one of the kiddos to have if you were to want to give them a job. So again, we're just getting this off of the stem. You can use collards. You can use, this is kale. Like I said, spinach is a good option. So the thing about iceberg lettuce, the lettuces that are a little bit lighter in appearance have more of a water content to them. So they are not as rich in vitamins and nutrients as maybe our dark leafy greens like this will be. So we know that's one reason if you'll ever see that it says dark leafy green in there, that's what it's meaning. The recipe just wants you to have all of the vitamins and nutrients you can get from your choice of salad mix. So this is just one of those things. And try out different things to see if you like them or not. I know not everyone is a fan of kale. I love it personally, so I'm cooking it today. I like it raw or cooked. So there's a lot of different things that we can use for this. I'm actually only using, so far, I know this doesn't, it looks like a lot, but when you cook it, it goes down. We're not cooking it today, but this is only half of a bunch. The recipe calls for a full bunch. I'm only using half today. I may not even do this last stem. Long story short, I still have half of this left, and it's in season right now. So at the grocery store, it did not cost very much today. So I'm just gonna set that to the side. My bowl is pretty full, so we're gonna set this nice bowl of kale right here to the side until we're ready for that. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'll actually probably go ahead and tackle my fennel. So if you are unfamiliar with this vegetable, I'm going to kind of show you how to prepare it today, or at least one way to prepare it. There's a lot of different ways to prepare this. So now what we're going to do is we are going to cut these stalks or fronds off of the fennel, and we're going to be dealing with the bulb today. You can also use these as an herb, so they're all still good and edible. You could actually use it in the salad. It doesn't call for it, but you totally could. So I've probably shown you guys before, holding our knife with a pinch grip up here, 3 fingers wrapped around. I'm going to kind of use a claw grip. I'm just going to not have my hands like this. We just want to have our fingers out of the way as best as possible. So it's going to look something like that. So I'm going to cut as close to the bulb as possible. And now we have all of these off. I'm just going to place those to the side. Like I said, I can use those again. So this is what you're left with, and I'm going to cut it just straight down the middle. So for those of you who have never had fennel before, it's actually, so it kind of looks like, it looks a little bit like a mix between celery and green onion, and it has the strange look to it, but it actually has a sweet, it almost smells like licorice. No, that's super strange, but it has a sweet, like licorice smell and flavor to it. So just not what you expect from something that looks a little bit similar to an onion, but the crunch is kind of there like an onion would be. Okay, so if you guys can see this, there's like a core right here that we don't necessarily want to eat, so we're gonna cut that out. We can do that in a few ways. We could just have it cut in half like we just did, or I can cut it one more time and then kind of shave off my core like that. It's about this big, and we're just going to discard it over here. So I'm going to do that for this piece as well. We don't need those. I'm actually only going to cut up probably one of these quarters because I'm making a smaller batch. So for this recipe in particular, it calls for it to be thinly sliced. So I'm just going to, as best as to my ability, get these really close together. Fennel can be also cooked. It gives it more of a smooth, or I guess a silk kind of taste instead of a crunch, which is what it is now. I don't believe it affects the flavor too much, but the texture will be completely different if you cut it, saute, or put it in the oven or anything like that. And I'm actually, this is what it's wanting, which looks pretty good, but I'm going to just cut 1 or 2 times this way. Don't like mine to be that big. So this is perfect. They have a really strong sweet smell when you're cutting them too, so it's pretty unique. Next thing that we're gonna do is cut up our beet, kind of the same thing as we did for our fennel. We're gonna cut off these stems. You can actually eat the leafy green off of beets, just like you would. It's actually another dark leafy green that we could put in a salad today if we wanted to, which I actually might do. I haven't rinsed this part of it yet, but I might do that in a little bit. But if not, I'm gonna save it for another use in something else that I cook. So these are edible as well, the leafy green parts of them. And then we are going to peel it. So I rinsed off the outside already. Beets and a lot of other of our root vegetables are going to come with a lot of dirt on them, and then also they're just shipped around from the farm to wherever the supply is, and then distribution for the grocery store. So they go through a lot of hands after being in the ground. So please make sure to wash your fruits and vegetables. So beets are awesome. They have this very tough looking exterior. Beets are, very dense, but the exterior looks like it's going to be really, really difficult to slice through, but it's not. It's a pretty easy one to peel. If you've ever used beets before, they will stain your hands and your clothes and everything and anything so be careful with that. Okay. Red, if not deep color purple. Once you get into it, maybe that's better. A little bit. Okay, So whenever we cut into it, we're gonna put it flat side down. Obviously, it took a little bit of elbow grease to get through the middle of it, so we wanna make sure we have a flat surface to work with. So now we're going to make our dices. Actually did a pretty good job of tearing this when I was tearing it earlier, so I don't necessarily need to do this for all of it, but I am going to go ahead and just show you. So this would be a good example of what I don't want it to look like. I'm going to take a few of these leaves and stack them. I could have done this while I could have probably saved me a few minutes if I would have done this while as I shredded them. So I would take a stack like this. I could even roll it in this manner, and it's going to give me a longer strip. That one's not quite as long, but this is, yeah, so these are like strips of greens instead of chunks. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my garlic. So if you guys are familiar, you place your garlic down the flat side of your knife, put that down right here, and then just the palm of your hand. Use that to crack it, and then all you have to do is peel. It should come right off. So should come right off, and then discard of the outer layer. Make sure it's pretty good and crushed, and then I'm just going to mince it really fine as I can. And because we're doing vegetables here today, it's all raw vegetables. Haven't changed cutting boards. If I'm ever doing meat or anything like that, I'm gonna change cutting boards with that, of course. It's actually great if you have designated cutting boards for that for food safety reasons. But the point of that is that I'm gonna have purplish red garlic because of my beet juice. All right, so I'm gonna place that to the side, and then the recipe calls for a full lemon. I'm actually only going to do a half of one, making a little bit smaller portions like we've said. I have this handy dandy juicer to use. So that is what I'm going to use today, but I'm also going to show you guys a trick. You don't have a juicer, but you do have a lovely pair of tongs. If you're squeezing it with all your might and you've gotten out as much as you think you can get out, just a way to maybe help your hands hold it on just a little bit better. I stick it in between the tongs, and then I grab my tongs, and it just helps give me a better grip on it, and I'm able to get a lot more juice out that way. So if you don't have a juicer and you're trying to look to get the maximum amount out, that's a really good way to do it. All right. And I will discard of that. So now I have my kale, I have my fennel, I have my beets, I have my lemon juice. We're going to make our dressing in just a moment, but I am going to check on my barley because I think it's almost done and take it off of the heat. So we checked our barley at the exact right time. I think it had been about 42 minutes. So all the water has gone from it. It is a perfect consistency, and it's cooked all the way through. So yeah, we're gonna put this to the side and we'll use it in just a moment. Because this salad can be served, all the other ingredients are cold ingredients, so I usually just kind of let this sit out too and get room temperature as well. So we're gonna go ahead and chop up our apple as well. So same thing as we've been doing before. We're gonna get our fingers out of the way. Whenever we can create a flat side and then use that flat side, that's what we're gonna do. So for the first cut, I cut this way and then I use that edge. When you can do that, it's best. Sometimes I forget, sometimes people forget, but it's best practice to use that flat side, safest practice. So then I'm just going to dice these, and I'm gonna try, just for consistency's sake, to make them about that same 1/2 inch that I made the beet. Perfect. It calls for 1 whole apple. Again, I am probably going to do about half of the apple. And if you have a hungry kiddo while you're making this recipe, even though this recipe doesn't take too long, you can give them the core of the apple. Say, hey, go bite around this instead of me trying to get all the pieces off of it. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and add my lemon juice in here. I have 3 little lemon seeds that I'm gonna evacuate first. Good deal. I have a little bit less than 1/4 of a cup of olive oil. It says canola oil. I like to use olive oil for my dressings. Extra virgin olive oil if you have it. I'm using a little less than 1/4 of a cup of apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar is a little bit stronger than some of the others to me, so then that's what I have on hand, so I'm just using a little bit less of that. A tablespoon of Dijon mustard. And then a little less than 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt and pepper. And we're going to put our garlic in there as well. Cannot forget that. And we're just going to whisk that together with a fork. When you make salads, if you have everything made in advance, as long as you don't add the dressing to it, you can save some of this for future use. So if you made a whole bunch of this and you wanted to be able to save some of it until tomorrow's dinner, I didn't even show you guys. Let's see. There we go. So if you wanted to save some of this for the next night or something of the sort, you just wouldn't put all the dressing on this. And I'm a fan sometimes of letting people put this on their own salad anyway, in case that they don't. I make a lot of different dressings at home, and we just usually let people do their own when they come, so that if they prefer a different kind, they can use that. But hopefully they'll like your unique handmade different dressing. So, all right. Gonna add in our apple and our beets and our fennel. We are going to add some feta cheese to this in just a moment. So the only other thing that I failed to mention to you guys that we have going is we have our nuts on the stove heating up. So I have kind of a mixture of walnuts and almonds, which is what I had on hand. They are on the skillet right now, just to show you guys. I don't have any type of oil or spray that I'm using with the different types of nuts, because they have nuts have high fat content already. So generally they're not going to stick to the pan, especially if you have a non-stick pan. You don't generally need to add any other oil or anything to that, because it uses its own fat. So I don't add any more to that. They can just go on there 2 or 3 minutes. You'll usually, they burn pretty quickly, so watch them carefully. I have them on like a medium low heat, but they'll start to smell very fragrant, any type of nuts that you're toasting. So you'll be able to know kind of that being their done phase. You can't take them off too soon, because they're nuts, so you can eat them in any type of way. So it's fine if you do. You're just might be worried about taking them off too late, because they will burn. So while we're waiting on that, grab our barley. We're gonna kind of scoop this in there, add to our mixture. Grab those tongs that I had there. All right, so we took them off. Again, there's not too much of a visual difference. You'll see that you might not be able to tell, but when you're toasting them, they'll get a little bit darker. But the main thing is just don't let them go on for more than a few minutes, and then also you'll be able to smell them. They're going to be more fragrant. So whenever you can start to smell them distinctively, you can take them off. And again, medium to low heat. You don't want to do any higher than that, because they burn quick. So I'll just kind of sprinkle those over our salad. And then I chose feta cheese. It actually doesn't have this on the recipe as an option, but I like feta cheese and I eat it on a lot of different things. I'm just going to top some just for pretty's sake, and then I'll put more on my actual plate. But you can use blue cheese, you could use feta, you can use goat cheese, all different types of options for this type of salad. And again, we have our dressing that we're gonna that you can toss it with. I'm going to reserve to do that on a plate itself, but just so you guys can see the final result, I hope you guys, oh, there we go. It's a pretty good view of it. You can't see quite the amount of density that there is to this salad. Maybe you can see in the side of the bowl. Oh, there was a lot of it right down there. So I even had to take out some of our kale to be able to show how much was in the bowl. But this is a fall vegetable salad. Just really quick recipe framework. If you're building a salad, you know that you need to have the base of some type of leafy green. Of course, we recommend to do a darker leafy green so you're getting those vitamins in. Picking 2 or 3 different types of vegetables and or fruit to go in that as well. Any types of nuts in a salad is always going to be a good option. If you wanted to make this the main part of your meal, if this was the only thing that you were going to eat, you could add a source of protein to it, such as a meat. So you could add chicken if you'd like to. That would go pretty well with this. Or you could do it as a side salad, but this is, again, a hearty salad. And we added a grain to it as well. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. We added a grain to it. So that's going to make it a lot more dense, and it's going to be a lot more filling than a regular side salad. So this and a piece of grilled chicken will probably be what we have for dinner tonight. So I hope you guys get the chance to make this, and I hope you enjoy it. And have a great rest of your week. Thanks. Bye. Anybody think that might be something worth trying?
So if I absolutely hate licorice, would I hate fennel?
I don't think so. I don't like licorice myself, so I think you would be fine. It's not as strong of a taste of licorice. It's just like kind of reminiscent of it, but I, as a person who like would fight a piece of licorice if I could, I don't hate fennel. So I think maybe try it, like a small piece of it, and see how you feel about it before you make a whole salad of it. But yeah.
And I will also say I've only ever used it in recipes that have a lot of other ingredients. Like I've never used it in a recipe that only has like 1 or 2 other things. So it's definitely a complementary flavor, and it's not something that you eat like by itself. But I like what Day said. It's reminiscent of it. Doesn't taste like licorice, but when you smell it though, you will, that is what it reminds me of its smell anyway.
Also, if you guys are, go ahead, Maya.
I just said, I don't think you'll hate it. And I definitely think it's worth trying, and just start it out in like small amounts, because it's a unique flavor that adds a lot to different dishes. Like it's just something that you don't get from any other veggie that I find. Yeah. And I know that this one's definitely, I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. We've done ones with ingredients that I feel like we all eat. And this is one that just has some, funky stuff that I like in there, and things that complement each other well. And you can, once you try something like this, maybe it'll inspire you to use parts in other dishes or replace certain parts with other things. So
thank you for joining us for Cooking Matters at the Store. Be sure to register for the next live Cooking Matters virtual event, and this last one in our series, that's next Monday, December 7th. That's at 6 p.m. And that topic is Cooking Matters snacking. So make sure you go to that adult virtual events page to register if you haven't done that already. You can also check out all of our other events there too, to tide you over in the meantime. And if you want another great tip on health and wellness, I always say, use your library card. Your library card is your ticket to all of these free resources, physical books, ebooks, downloadable, streaming, everything you can imagine, really. So also don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for library updates, and sign up for our e-newsletter. So thank you all for your time, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great night. Bye, everyone.